Hi, it's Jordan and a baby. Today I want to talk about plagiarism. I was reading this issue of Mojo magazine. It's got Led Zeppelin on the cover and a write-up about Led Zeppelin 4, which turned 50 this year. And of course, in that write-up, the interviewer and writer had to touch on the Stairway to Heaven plagiarism allegations that were recently resolved as a matter of American federal copyright law. The decision is much more complicated than journalists or the band itself might make it out to be, and hinges on lots of things like what law applies to the issue, the kind of things that make non-lawyers want to just leave the room. So I think that, unfortunately, the ruling sort of leaves open the question of, should we think of Stairway to Heaven as having plagiarized a song by the band Spirit? When I was reading this article, Jimmy Page's sort of like one-sentence dismissal of the claim really hit home for me. Anyone who knows anything about playing guitar knows some things have been around forever. Super interesting response. He's basically defending himself against a plagiarism claim by saying, I didn't copy Randy California. I copied the annals of music. This is so integral to the foundations and history of modern music that it's crazy to think that I got it from Randy. I got it from everybody. You know, you also hear people like one of the Gallagher brothers in Oasis talking about there are only 12 notes, there are only so many ideas, and I think there's some truth to that. Some truth. I think the issue really boils down to, when you're looking at a particular idea, how simple is the idea? How obvious is the idea? If the idea is really obvious, it lends support to this notion that anybody with a basic understanding of how music works and has been used in the past could have found it. If the idea is more complex, it raises questions. That just begs the question I want to talk about today. How simple is the intro of Stairway to Heaven? I've been playing guitar for a long time and have stumbled upon some obvious and not obvious ideas, but I just started trying to learn to play keyboard on this toy. It's very small. It just so happens that in a couple of the days before reading this article, I was working on a song that used descending bass line to sort of guide the movement of my idea. Trust me, I'm gonna get back to Stairway to Heaven. My idea went something like this. I thought that sounded good, but what I didn't think is that that was original. If you have spent any time learning songs by your favorite artists or exploring music theory concepts in a more general way, one of the first things that people talk to you about is using leading tones in the bass to guide harmonic motion. Walking down the C major scale on a piano is about the most obvious thing that a person could do. And I've done it. I'm sure there are others who have done it before. I can't think of any of them right now, and I certainly wasn't thinking of any of them when I thought about this idea. I just thought, what would it sound like if I just walked down that line? I thought it sounded good, so I'm going to keep it. It's an obvious idea. I think it would be crazy for somebody to claim that I plagiarized it because it's so simple. Now, what's the second most obvious idea? Instead of doing that in C, let's do it on A minor. Forgive me my fat, sloppy fingers. Probably didn't sound that much like Stairway to Heaven, but as a matter of fact, I think it's extremely similar to Stairway to Heaven. In that case, I was walking down sort of in the A natural minor scale, just walking down the white keys here, one at a time. Diatonic, in-scale tones are kind of boring if you want to make something spicy. The first thing that you do, the first thing, this is not creative, this is what anybody will tell you, is you add some chromaticism, okay? So instead of taking the second most obvious idea that I can think of on a keyboard, which is to walk down stepwise within the key, I'm going to walk down stepwise using the chromatic notes in between, so that the bass sounds something like this. If that sounds familiar, that's because that's the backbone of the two ideas we're talking about here. I'm being a little bit facetious, but it's kind of like the third most obvious idea that you could come up with on piano. Even closer. What did I do there? In my right hand, I was just playing playing the 3rd and 5th of an A minor chord, and I didn't change them at all. I just walked down the same bass line, and then after I got down to the F, I went up to G and resolved back to A minor. We are well within the realm of obvious ideas. But you know, any writer worth their salt would say, I'm not just gonna hold the A minor the whole time. Let's find some natural places where I could maybe change the underlying harmony, move the things I'm doing with my right hand to make it sound a little bit more flavorful. If I was that person, the first thing I would do is this. So I sit on those little A minor notes for a while, but then when the bass goes down to F sharp, I move to a first inversion of a D major chord. And then when it goes down to F, I go to an F chord, G chord. When the bass goes to G, back to A minor. That is exactly what both of these songs do. It could not be easier. It could not be more obvious. I think that lends a lot of credibility to Jimmy Page's claim. He basically says, this idea has been around forever. It's crazy to say that I took it from this specific song. I think he's right. Probably right. It's possible that he took it from the Spirit song. They did tour together. It's also possible that it's just like the kind of thing you've gleaned from having ears and having learned a little bit about the style of music that you're trying to make. And if you liked this, like it, subscribe, leave me a comment. This is an environment where very few people engage with me, and so I'm glad to engage with every single one of you. As always, I hope you're doing well. Take care of yourselves. Keep listening. Keep thinking about what you're listening to, what you're trying to create. Have an open mind, an open heart, an open soul for the music to flow through. It's Jordan and a Baby, signing off.